Hello and welcome. Tonight, bandits kill 25 farmers, abduct several others from various communities in Rafi local government area of Niger State. President Bola Tinubu gives his first address to the nation tomorrow as the country marks Democracy Day. Don't bungle the investigation of suspended CBN governor by going outside your area of jurisdiction. That's coming from human rights lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, to the Department for State Security. We begin with security. Bandits have killed 25 farmers and abducted scores of people, including women and girls from various communities in Rafi local government area of Niger State. The attack, which happened on Saturday, comes a day after 13 members of the vigilante were killed and many villagers were abducted in Kursharki village. The State Police Public Relations Officer, DSP Wasiu Abiodun, who confirmed the attack, could however not ascertain the casualty figure. Also confirming the attack, a community leader in one of the affected villages, who did not want his name mentioned for security reasons, claimed that the bandits have resumed attacks with full force in some villages in the local government. Calling on the state government and security agencies to come to their aid, he said that the community has been under siege by bandits in the last 2 weeks as the situation had worsened. Also, the senator representing Niger East Senatorial District, Mohammed Sani Musa, confirmed the attack and expressed concern that the bandits have resumed attacks in 4 local government councils of Rafi, Paikoro, Munya and Shiroro in that part of his constituency. Well, still on security, the Benue State government has denied any link or supporting the security outfit launched last week, Al-Tashik Global Security, owned by one Aliyu Tershaku. Now, the state deputy governor, Mr. Samuel Ode, at a press conference in the state capital, distanced himself and the government from the outfit.
For over 5 years, nearly 2 million out of the estimated 7 million residents in Benue State are living in various internally displaced persons camps because of herdsmen attacks. To address the situation, Al-Tashik Global Security Group, owned by an alleged former Boko Haram kingpin, was launched in the state, but this is causing some controversy. First, the opposition People's Democratic Party blames the All Progressives Congress administration of Governor Hyacinth Alia for supporting the launch.
This security initiative of Governor Alia is most absurd for the fact that it lacks legal backing and is questionable considering that this same Aliyu Tershaku has severally been arrested and profiled by federal security agencies as having links to the Boko Haram terrorist groups. We condemn all the misguided, arbitrary, and unpopular actions so far taken by Governor Hyacinth Alia, and we call on all who mean well for Benue State to do the same.
The deputy governor, in a swift reaction, explains that he neither inaugurated nor mandated anyone to launch the outfit, as he distances the Benue State government from the security outfits.
As the deputy governor of Benue State, I did not authorize any group or any individual to represent me at such event, which was termed the commissioning of a security outfit known as Al-Tashik Security Outfit. As a government, we are calling on the good people of Benue State and, of course, the very distinguished members of the press to ignore this invidious plot calculated to cause disaffection and scare the citizens of Benue State.
Although Benue State has been experiencing some security challenges over the last decade because of persistent attacks by suspected herdsmen, the launch of Al-Tashik Security Group in the state appears not to be helping the situation.
Meanwhile, security agencies have been tasked to prioritize the protection of civilians in its ongoing war against terrorists in the country. Stakeholders made the call at an engagement on civil-military cooperation and civilian protection in Gusau, the Zamfara state capital.
Zamfara State is one of the states affected by banditry, kidnapping for ransom, and other crimes. Many communities have suffered collateral damage during the course of military operations in the state, and as a result, a training is organized to build the capacity of the frontline security agencies, conflict reporters, and civil society organizations on how to work together with the security agencies in flushing out terrorists in Zamfara State in particular and the country in general.
It's actually a sensitization workshop and community engagement aimed at reminding us on our important roles and responsibilities when it comes to civilian protection, when it comes to the relationship between the military and civilians, and also ensuring that the overall objective is actually to ensure that our communities are safe.
The participants believe that trust building between the security agencies and members of the community will make this task before the security agencies a whole lot easier.
The key takeaways in this workshop are that there is need for the civilian, the local communities, to give real-time intelligence to the military or the security agencies to be able to secure these communities very well.
This workshop is really informative because we have gotten new information about the synergy between community members and the security agencies, and women have a vital role to play in the sense of security in Zamfara State. I believe that more women should be included because as mothers, as homekeepers, we can see things happening within our society easily than our men counterparts.
A consensus among the participants is that it is important to be careful and professional in executing their various responsibilities as they share credible intelligence with the security operatives.
President Bola Tinubu will make his first broadcast address to Nigerians by 7 a.m. on Monday in commemoration of this year's Democracy Day. A statement by the State House Director of Information, Mr. Abiodun Oladunjoye, says the president's broadcast will air on national television and radio stations. Channels Television will also bring you the president's broadcast. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. George Akume, had on Friday said this year's Democracy Day, with the theme Hope Reassured, would be celebrated low-key. Mr. Akume urged Nigerians to take stock of how the nation has fared and assess the dividends of democracy and the areas that need improvement. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party presidential candidate in this year's general elections, Atiku Abubakar, says democracy in Nigeria still remains in bondage and requires the energy of all to rescue it. He made this known in his message to Nigerians ahead of the June 12 Democracy Day celebration. Mr. Abubakar says while the Democracy Day represents a return to civil rule in Nigeria, the desire to make the country's democracy self-sustaining and independent of anti-democratic elements is the new frontier of participation by all Democrats. According to him, democracy without a corresponding commitment to the principles of fairness and fidelity to the rule of play by stakeholders in the processes of conducting elections still leaves the people prostrate to tendencies of dictatorship. The former vice president notes that for democracy in Nigeria to be fully fledged, it must constantly evolve away from the current practice where the governing elite determines the outcome of elections. The presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, is calling for what he terms the return to the true virtues of a truly democratic nation taken after the June 12, 1993 experience. Mr. Obi, in his statement to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the election, underscores the need to promote an electoral system that commands the trust of the people. He laments challenges which he said undermines the foundational pillars of democracy in the country. In the quote, "Our democracy is deeply troubled, while our nation's destiny remains uncertain and precarious. We remain a nation in search of solutions to too many basic problems. One of these is the search for a credible electoral system that will command the trust, confidence, and belief of all Nigerians, just like June 12 did." He then challenged players in the country's election and democratic practice to take lessons from the June 12 memorial. Mr. Obi considers the commemoration of June 12 this year as potent enough to inspire the nation to correct the errors of its recent elections. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has sued the federal government over what it describes as a failure to probe the allegations that $2.1 billion and 3.1 trillion naira oil revenue budgeted as fuel subsidy payments are missing between 2016 and 2019. SERAP says the suit followed the allegations documented by the Auditor General of the Federation in the 2016 and 2019 annual reports that the public funds are missing. Filed by SERAP, the suit is seeking an order of mandamus to direct and compel President Bola Tinubu to probe allegations that the $2.1 billion and 3.1 trillion naira are unaccounted for between 2016 and 2019. The order also seeks to compel President Tinubu to direct the anti-graft agencies to probe fuel subsidy payments made by governments since the return of democracy in 1999. The rights group believes the government has the constitutional and international legal obligations to investigate these allegations and ensure accountability for these serious crimes. The suspended governor of the CBN, that's the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, has spent his second night in DSS custody, and it's still unclear when and if the secret agent will prefer charges against the top banker. Meanwhile, a senior advocate of Nigeria and rights lawyer, Mr. Femi Falana, is advising the DSS not to bungle the case of the suspended bank chief. According to Mr. Femi Falana, the secret agency should tackle the case within the limit of its powers in the Constitution. He warned the DSS against prosecuting Mr. Godwin Emefiele on matters bordering on allegation of money laundering and allied offences. Another angle to Mr. Falana's advice is that the DSS should restrict its attention to Mr. Emefiele's alleged terrorism financing and transfer the other cases to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for consideration. Mr. Falana wants the DSS to learn from the experience of the EFCC, which lost a case to the former Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, because it went beyond its constitutionally allowed powers. In part two, after the break, Channels Television's data analyst Babajide Ogunsawo takes a look at some of the policies of the central bank under Mr. Godwin Emefiele. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Bandits kill 25 farmers, abduct several others from various communities in Rafi local government area of Niger State. President Bola Tinubu gives his first address to the nation tomorrow as the country marks Democracy Day. In recent months, the suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, has indeed made the headlines for a lot of reasons. Well, tonight, to review the policies of the CBN under Godwin Emefiele is Babajide Ogunsawo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst. Babajide, we're here again. Great to have you on the News at 10.
We're here again.
Yes, we're looking at the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, who already has been suspended. Now, let's take a look at the economic impact of the CBN's policies, under Godwin Emefiele. How would you say that panned out?
There are different ways to look at this impact, but perhaps the most effective way to look at the impact of the CBN under Godwin Emefiele is to look at what were the objectives of the CBN. In simple terms, what does the CBN Act state that the CBN should do? That is the way to measure the impact of Godwin Emefiele under his 9 years of being at the CBN. So let's take a look at what the Act says. What does the CBN Act say about the responsibilities of the CBN? And in Section 2 of the CBN Act 2007, the objectives of the central bank are clear. 5 objectives. Ensure monetary and price stability, exactly what's in front of you, number 1. Number 2, issue legal tender currency. The 3rd objective, maintain external reserves. 4th objective, promote a sound financial system. And the 5th objective, as stated in the Act for the CBN, is to act as a banker, provide economic and indeed financial advice that should be good for the government. And so these are the 5 measures that I would like to look at tonight. Let's take a look at the first measure, the first responsibility, monetary and price stability. What happened under Godwin Emefiele? These are the facts. Since 1999, Nigeria has had 5 central bank governors. First, Joseph Sanusi. That was the first CBN governor under Obasanjo. Within that period, inflation rate, within his 5-year period, inflation rate, 80% as reported by the National Bureau of Statistics. Second CBN governor, Charles Soludo. Within his 5-year term, inflation rate, 68%. Third CBN governor, Sanusi Lamido. Within his 5-year period, 62% inflation rate. That is how prices went. Between Sanusi Lamido and Godwin Emefiele, Sarah Alade acted for just about a 4-month period, and so inflation rate went 3%. However, the fact shows that under the period of Godwin Emefiele, June 2014 to June 2023, inflation has gone as high as 241%. So when it comes to that first objective, ensuring monetary and price stability, these are the statistics, and you can judge if the objective was achieved. Let's take a look at the second objective, issuing legal currency tender. The evidence we have shows that when the central bank governor came in June 2014, those are the numbers in front of you, demand deposits that the central bank had. Simple terms, checking accounts, 5.8 trillion naira. That has grown to approximately 21 trillion naira. That seems to be some good news. Credit to the private sector, approximately 17 trillion when he came in. Now 44 trillion seems to be some good news. Currency in circulation, 1.5 trillion naira. We have more currency in circulation, 2.3 trillion naira. On the nominal terms, that seems to be some good news. But here's why there's bad news here. If we take a look at still what is in front of us, we see that in June 2014, still what we had before. In June 2014, demand deposits, 5.8 trillion naira. Credit to the private sector, 16.9 trillion naira. In simple terms, if we still had focused on that previous information that was in front of us, in simple terms, credit to the private sector was more than triple demand deposits. Look at what had happened in 2023. Demand deposits less than doubled within the same period. Exactly. Here's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So what I mean is in 2014, demand deposits, 5.8 trillion naira. Credit to the private sector, 16 trillion naira. So what you see that is that the credit to the private sector, which is what businesses want, was more than triple the value of demand deposits. Now in 2023, we see that credit to the private sector is just a little about double what it's of demand deposits. In simple terms, private sector businesses will prefer to be in 2014 compared to 2023. Now let's take a look at the external reserves situation, which is the third point stated on the objectives of the central bank. And if we take a look at the external reserves, because that's a critical point where a lot of people talk about. Nigeria has had 12 central bank governors. External reserves has risen from 5 of these governors, declined in 7 of these governors' terms. But here's what you notice. The top performing governors, Chukwuma Soludo, Abdulkadir Ahmed, and Joseph Sanusi, we see Chukwuma Soludo leads across all. External reserves went from $10 billion to $44 billion under Chukwuma Soludo, number 1. Number 2, Abdulkadir Ahmed. External reserves went from $858 million to $7.6 billion. And under Joseph Sanusi, who was the first central bank governor under Obasanjo, external reserves went from $4.9 billion to $10 billion. These 3 governors had the best performance when it comes to growing external reserves. Let's look at the 3 bottom governors that struggled with external reserves. Sanusi Lamido, even though he had a lot of other pros, one major challenge he had was the decline in external reserves under him, followed by Paul Oguama, who people refer to as Abacha's central bank governor because he was central bank governor from 1993 to 1999. External reserves declined by $3.8 billion. Third on that list, Godwin Emefiele. When he came in, external reserves, $37 billion. In 9 years, external reserves as he leaves, not $37 billion, not 36, not 35, just a little over $34 billion. So in all, even though there are 5 critical points, and if there's time, we'll look at those other 2 points to be able to look at how should and how will it be remembered.
Which, of course, I was going to talk about now. How easy or difficult will it be for the next CBN governor, when he gets the job, he or she?
Clearly not easy. Clearly not easy. Let's look at how difficult it will be. And if we take a look at, and one of the ways to look at how difficult this task is to look at the financial system. Again, we had in the principal objectives of the bank, you have to promote a sound financial system. How sound is Nigeria's financial system, or how sound has it been in the last 9 years? And one way to look at that is to look at how capital came into the country. 2014 to 2016, we've seen that decline. Capital imported into Nigeria had a declining wave. Then we saw an upward wave from 2016 to 2019. And we see that declining wave that started again since 2019. So it has been one positive wave in the last 9 years, 2 negative waves in the last 9 years. And in final analysis, one of the things Nigerians are talking about, the exchange rate. The exchange rate, and this is important because more than half of everything we import are manufactured goods. And so once the exchange rate depreciates, goods go up. Let's take a look at the exchange rate again, which is the 5th and final position of the mandate of the central bank. Economic advice to the federal government. We see that when Godwin Emefiele came in, exchange rate availability for most Nigerians at the parallel market, it was 167 naira. In the last 9 years, exchange rate has declined by 358%. Only 2 other central bank governors had worse results when it comes to exchange rate differential. But in the final analysis, Ayo, again, the CBN is only one part of it, monetary policy. It takes 2 to tango. Perhaps next week we'll talk about the physical side of things.
We'll definitely get to do that.
It takes 2 to tango.
It takes 2 to tango, like we always say. Anyway, many thanks, Babajide Ogunso, for your analysis there. Moving on now, the Executive Director of Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, Mr. Clement Nwakwo, has faulted the suspension and arrest of the suspended Central Bank Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele. Mr. Nwakwo explains that the suspension and the appointment of an acting governor is illegal, as such an action requires a 2/3 vote by members of the National Assembly. Mr. Nwakwo was a guest on our political program, Sunday Politics.
Everyone knew, of course, that Mr. Emefiele was going to come to a sad end because of the way that he has managed the central bank, because of the lack of professionalism that he has exhibited in his work, and because he really crossed the boundaries of professionalism. So it was quite clear that he was going to be out of the CBN. The question was when and who would do it. I think what is really disappointing, of course, is that when you look at the laws that establish the CBN, the Central Bank Act, there are provisions for removing a governor of the central bank. And I think for all of us who are watching the situation, it's a question really to ensure that we follow due process. The law is very clear in Section 11. You have read it. It says that provided that the removal of the governor shall be supported by 2/3 majority of the Senate, praying that he be so removed. And if you look at interpretations, I don't have the interpretation act here, but if you look at interpretation of suspension, suspension is part of the definition of removal. You are removing him from his duties, even if it is a temporary removal. And in this case, clearly we don't see that the CBN governor's suspension is a temporary removal. It would seem to me that he is his job is over. And I don't think Nigerians regret that his job is over. I think that given the pain and given the damage he has inflicted on the economy, he should have been removed by the Senate a long time ago. Indeed, he should not even have been confirmed for a second term when the Senate did so. But clearly, I think that for the purposes of precedence, for the purposes of rule of law, we need to follow our laws as they are. And I do not think that any Senate sitting can refuse to remove a CBN governor that has acted in the way that Mr. Mefele has acted.
Ahead of the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly on Tuesday, two of the speakership aspirants, Honorable Aliu Betara and Honorable Yusuf Gagdi, have withdrawn from the race for Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, the APC-supported candidate. They agreed to step down from the race on Sunday after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima. Now, the meeting was attended by Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila and the Governor of Niger State, Mohammed Bago, who was also a member of the 9th Assembly. When contacted, an aide to Honorable Gagdi confirmed the incident and said, quote, "Have you seen the video making the rounds after a meeting with the President and the Vice President? That is the position for now. You can now write your story along that line." The Tajuddin Abbas Benjamin Kalu media campaign team announced that Betara and Gagdi have stepped down from the race. A statement from the Tajuddin Abbas campaign group says, "It is worthy to note that Betara and Gagdi announced that they stepped down for Honorable Tajuddin Abbas today, Sunday, June the 11th, 2023, after a meeting with President Bola Tinubu and Vice President Kashim Shettima. As of Sunday, June the 11th, Honorable Tajuddin Abbas has secured the endorsement of the overwhelming majority of members elect across the 8 political parties in the 6 geopolitical zones, and is ready to compete on the floor of the House and take the mantle of leadership of the 10th House come Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. The immediate past governor of Zamfara State, Mr. Bello Matawali, has been reacting to Friday's invasion of his 2 private houses by security operatives who impounded vehicles. The former state governor, who spoke to the BBC Hausa Service interview, accused the security agents of looting the personal belongings of his wives and children, including clothing materials. He maintains that he was not issued with a copy of the court order which allowed the security agents to invade his houses, as claimed by successor Mr. Dauda Lawal. Mr. Matawali explains that the majority of the vehicles taken away by the security agencies from his 2 houses in Guzo and Maradun were procured by him before becoming governor, having been in a car business. He also challenged the security agents to display the 40 vehicles reportedly recovered from his home, adding that nothing could be farther from the truth. Mr. Bello Matawali accused the security agents of looting his belongings and those of his family members, as he's promised to challenge the invasion through channels allowed in law. Now let's head to Kogi State, where the state government has admonished communities living along the riverine areas to relocate to higher grounds to avoid the impending flood disaster for this year, as predicted by NIMET, that's the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. The special advisor to the state governor on humanitarian affairs, Amina Usman, made this known during a critical stakeholders meeting held in Lokoja, the state capital.
This meeting, held at the Glass Hall of the Government House in Lokoja with stakeholders and the International Organization for Migration, is to brainstorm on strategies that will bring a lasting solution to flood issues in Kogi State. Participants are drawn from various organizations and affected communities in the state. They examine the challenges encountered during the previous exercise and adopt strategies to tackle this year's rainy season and climate change.
Reports of 2022 from the State Emergency Management Agency stated that over 500 houses were submerged, about 1,380 schools with an estimated of 5,550 children were affected, and another 130.46 kilometers of land was flooded, of which 33.22 kilometers were croplands.
Some of the participants also make their contributions.
But in most time, the resources available for the state government to handle vital issues like this is very lean. And His Excellency Alhaji Hayabilo has never for any time relented his effort to squeeze the bucket, to squeeze the coffer of the state government to look for lasting solution to this problem.
The team then sets out to check some of the land provided by the state government for the permanent and temporary relocation of flood-affected victims at Karara and Lokoja Abuja Road, as the field information officer for the International Organization for Migration speaks more on their plans.
I think we need to have a place where people, especially those most vulnerable, can run to. And then for the long run, which maybe requires a lot of resources, and yes, it's good we have a permanent housing or solution for the community.
The next day, a workshop is organized by the international partners to educate the desk officers in the 9 local government areas affected by the flood in 2022 on adequate preparations. On her part, the Special Advisor on Humanitarian Affairs in Kogi State gives a summary of the state government's plans.
The site has been designated by His Excellency Alhaji Yahya Bello to build an evacuation camp, just in case. We are not hoping for, but we're just getting prepared, like I said earlier. Then the second phase is to build for permanent evacuation.
As the people prepare for the 2023 rainy season, the Kogi State Governor has promised to solve the problems associated with perennial flooding in the state before his tenure ends later this year.
From Kogi, let's head to Rivers, where the State Governor Siminalayi Fubara has ordered the immediate revocation of the contract for the construction of a road project that is yet to be completed about 20 years since it was awarded. The over 40 kilometers Ogoni, Andoni, Okpobo and Koro Unity Road was awarded by the Peter Odili administration to link some island communities to the mainland. Governor Fubara, who inspected the project, expressed disappointment that a section of the road is yet to be completed despite steady funding by the government.
Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara is undertaking the inspection of the Andoni section of the landmark Unity Road that was awarded 20 years ago. It was part of the over 40-kilometer stretch of road meant to link Andoni and Opobo and Koro, 2 island local government areas, to mainland Port Harcourt through Goni land. After 2 successive administrations of Dr. Peter Odili and Mr. Rotimi Amechi, the Nyesom Wike-led administration braved the odds to complete the Opobo and Koro axis in 2021 and asked the contractor to complete the 32-kilometer Andoni section before he will leave office. A visit by Governor Fubara shows that the contract is still far from being completed, despite government's claim that full payment has been made.
There was a meeting 1 year ago. That was when I was still the Accountant General, so I was privileged to be in the meeting. The kings, the chiefs, the opinion leaders of all the Andonis were there. And the contractors of this road was also there. He was asked, what is your problem? What are the things we need to do? He placed his demands. And every demand he made, the government obliged him. I can tell you that this project, this section of the Andoni Road, have been paid 100%.
Not convinced about the competence of the contractor, the governor consequently directs the immediate revocation of the contract.
I think there's a big elephant in this road. We will remove that elephant, just like the president did remove the elephant of subsidy. We will remove the elephant. And I've just spoken with the commissioner. If they should commence the process of revocation of this job, and so that we can give it a contractor that is serious and that can deliver. We don't mind what it will take.
Governor Fubara is promising to complete the Andoni section of the Unity Road within his first year in office.
Meanwhile, the Niger Delta Development Commission, the NDDC, has assured the people of the Niger Delta of its commitment to completing all ongoing infrastructure projects in the region. The NDDC Managing Director, Samuel Ogbuku, who gave the assurance during a tour of projects in Okporosa, headquarters of Baramatu Kingdom, and Escravos, all in Warri Southwest local government area of Delta State, called for the support of stakeholders in the region.
The management of the Niger Delta Development Commission continues its tour of ongoing NDDC projects across communities in the creeks of Warri Southwest local government area of Delta State. After a 2-hour ride on the stormy Warri-Escravos River, the NDDC team, led by its managing director, is here at the headquarters of Gbaramatu Kingdom, where the team pays a courtesy call to the palace of the paramount ruler, where the institution reels out several ongoing NDDC projects in need of completion.
I don't think any project from Gbaramatu Kingdom should be cancelled, considering the strategic position we occupy. And also, I don't also think that anywhere in Niger Delta where a project is said to be sited should be cancelled. If contractors have defaulted, deal with the contractors.
For the monarch, non-completion of projects is largely responsible for the slow pace of development across the Niger Delta.
We want good things to be happening in our kingdom, in Niger Delta. So that can also encourage us when we are talking to our subjects. With what we are seeing now, our expectation is for the project.
The NDDC Managing Director assures of completion of all ongoing projects to impact the lives of the people of the region.
And we thought there was a need to see some of these projects firsthand and also evaluate them to ensure that some of these projects are also completed. I can assure you that the management of NDDC, as we are today, are very, very committed to completing most of these ongoing projects.
He also inspects the internal roads and shore protection.
We are driving our PPP agenda and program. So those projects that are very, very big, like the marginal Warri-Escravos Road, that one we're also looking at a partnership with Chevron and other interested parties. So these are all the projects we are here in the creeks inspecting to evaluate most of them.
As the NDDC inspection team departs, residents of these creek communities can't wait to see actionable steps by the Commission to protect their shorelines and complete other projects.
Away from the Niger Delta to Oyo State, where Governor Seyi Makinde says his administration is committed to reversing the rural to urban migration with the provision of infrastructure to drive modern agriculture. The governor maintained his commitment to drive the policy while on an on-the-spot inspection of the farm estates, the Oyo Sugarcane Processor Limited and the Shein Ogbomosho Fakwoti Road in Oyo Town and Iseyin. He appeals to residents of the state to key into the agro-business policy of his administration.
You have seen the level of activities here, and I'm satisfied. And I look forward to, when the real business, value extraction, when it will start. When you have trucks, coming in and going out, with produce from this farm. And it's very near, very, very near. Opportunities have been created, and our people, should take advantage of, positive economic activities going on here and key into it. That's what we want to do. We said, look, we don't want people moving from the rural areas to urban centers. Now you can see facilities are being built around here, and quite honestly, I didn't feel like going back to Ibadan. The only business for government is to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. So here, it's not government at all. We're only creating the enabling environment for private businesses, to thrive here, and that's what we're seeing.
A secret laboratory producing deadly illicit substances in a residential community of Ikeja in Lagos State has been uncovered by the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. The facility, located on Bode Uluwo Street, Mende, Maryland, was stormed by operatives of the NDLEA based on credible intelligence, where it discovered a kilogram of already produced and packaged methamphetamine, among others, as efforts are already on to apprehend the suspects. Meanwhile, the consignment of 3.20 kilograms of skunk concealed in native black soap heading to the United Kingdom has been intercepted by the NDLEA operatives at the NACO export shed of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos. Similarly, interceptions occurred across states of the Federation, including Benue, Anambra, Imo, Edo, Ondo, Kebbi and Osun by anti-narcotics officers of the NDLEA in its campaign against illicit drug trafficking. And now to the arts. Introspection is a traveling exhibition by contemporary artist Muyiwa Akinwolere at the Thought Pyramid Art Center in Lagos. The artist presents works of art that capture social issues in a light-hearted and sarcastic way. We see some of these images on Art Review tonight.
This traveling exhibition of visual illustrations, Muyiwa Akinwolere's sarcasm, has finally come to the Thought Pyramid Art Center in Lagos with a tale of a bard in a show titled Introspection, which expresses the artist's thought process.
To introspect is to think deeply, to reflect. And the idea is it's about illustrating my thought process over a period of time. I have created different body of work for many years that I've been practicing, and I was thinking that I would like to have a show where all these different body of works that depicts the movement of how my career has evolved over the years, I could pull them together in a show. So that it could not just be for the show alone, but as a sort of documentation of what I've done in a period of my career.
In this documentation, the stories, which are told through an array of exciting paintings, explore different issues in the society, from the political, social, economical, emotional, and other aspects of human existence, especially within the Nigerian space, by being sarcastic.
Muyiwa Akinwolere is an artist who is very sarcastic. He looks at the situation of the country, politically and socially, and he talks about them in a satiric way, even though they are funny, but they are visuals that make you think, that makes you look at what's happening and what you think you can do. Why are these things happening? So in a way, when you look at his works, you tend to start questioning yourself for what is happening around you. So that's why you may want to engage his works.
The topics displayed by Muyiwa Akinwolere in this solo show are issues that people will be able to relate to and hopefully affect their peace of mind positively.
Residents in parts of Gauteng province of South Africa were woken up by a powerful tremor in the early hours of Sunday. According to a statement from the Council for Geoscience confirming the seismic event, the earthquake of approximately 4.4 magnitude occurred at 2:38 a.m. The epicenter was located in the Boksburg area, that's a few kilometers outside East and Proprietary Mine. This is in the East Rand of Johannesburg. No human casualties have been reported so far, but some affected residents have been sharing pictures of cracked building walls. The public has been encouraged to record their experiences on the Council for Geoscience website. 3 British tourists have been announced missing after a fire on board a dive boat in the Red Sea, as 26 others, including 12 Britons, were rescued from the boat off the coast of Marsalam. According to authorities, the boat had been on a dive cruise and left Port Khalib on June the 6th and was due back on Sunday. Also, the spokesperson said the fire occurred while the crew were doing the diving briefing at Elphinstone Reef. After months of infighting between defense officials and private military groups, Russia appears to have moved to take direct control of its paramilitary organization, Wagner. According to the Deputy Defense Minister Nikolai Pankov, volunteer formations will be asked to sign contracts directly with the Ministry of Defense, but the Wagner boss says his forces would boycott the contracts. Though the infighting between the Russian government and heads of the private security agency continues, the government says this move will increase effectiveness of Russian units fighting in Ukraine. Following the collapse of Kakhovka Dam in the Kherson region, Ukraine says the water levels have receded by almost half, although thousands of homes remain flooded as tens of thousands of people have lost access to drinking water. The dam burst on Tuesday, releasing a huge torrent of water which flooded vast areas of land on both sides of the Dnipro River, as Ukraine has blamed Russia for blowing up the dam located in Russian-controlled area of Ukraine, while Russia has also denied and accused Ukraine of being responsible for the destruction. According to Ukraine's Interior Ministry, 32 settlements had been flooded in Kherson, while another 14 were flooded in the Russian-controlled part. Time now for sports news. Enyimba International FC have won the Nigeria Premier Football League for a record 9 times earlier this evening. The Aba-based team played a 1-1 draw with defending champions Rivers United in the MPFL Super 6 playoff at the Mobolaji Johnson Arena in the final round of matches to finish top with 9 points from 5 games. Enyimba will also compete in the CAF Champions League next season. Remo Stars will also play Champions League following a 1-0 victory against Bendel Insurance in their Nigeria Premier League Super 6 playoffs final tie. The Kenya-based team came second with 9 points but have an inferior goal difference. Sunshine Stars ended their campaign in the MPFL Super 6 with a 3-1 victory against Lobi Stars. Delta Queens are the 2022-23 Nigeria Women's Football League Premiership champions after emerging victorious in the NWFL Super 6. The Delta State team stunned defending champions Bayelsa Queens 2-1 in the final match played at the Stephen Keshi Stadium in Asaba, Delta State, with Chinaza Agu netting a brace for the new champions. For emerging winners, Delta Queens will cart home 10 million naira and has automatically qualified for the WAFU B Women's CAF Champions League qualifier later in the year. Earlier Federation Cup finalists Rivers Angels beat Confluence Queens to finish third. And the main news again. Bandits have killed 25 farmers and abducted several others, including women and children from various communities in Rafi local government area of Niger State. We also told you that President Bola Tinubu will give his first address to the nation tomorrow as the country marks Democracy Day. Also today, human rights lawyer Femi Falana advised the Department of State Service not to bungle the investigation of suspended CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele by going outside its area of jurisdiction. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. To have a good night.